Hey guys, it's Matt. Let me take a crack at the reality concentric circles image again. I've had a few weeks to absorb this. I've made a lot of new notes. A lot of people have helped me via comments and email. I want to tie as much of that in as possible. If you're driving or you can't see the image, you won't need to. In fact, these notes are really for me. Trying to interpret or read every little thing that I've written here is distracting. I wouldn't even bother with it. As long as you just get a general sense that there are basically three rings here, three-ring circus. as long as you get a sense as to what the basic image looks like, no, it's not an eye. And no, it's not a C spiked ball. As long as you get a basic idea, I'll discuss each part. You won't need to see it. Just 1 minute for a few updates before I get into this. Rob tells me that it's almost certain the email that has the C presentation away from platforms that censor, it should be going out today. It's almost 100%. It'll go out today at some point. And you just simply click the link and hit play. And for me, I had to give the viewer or the player 5 or 6 seconds to load, and then it loaded. And also feel free to share this even before you listen to it with any friends, family. I promise you the conspiracy is at a minimum as much as possible. It's a very intelligent presentation. It's not like 25 minutes in. I'm not going to do things or joke around. There's a few jokes in it, no doubt about it, but overall it's an intelligent presentation. I'm not going to take liberties with it. If you're going to possibly share it with friends or family, or 20 minutes in, I'm going to be like, hey guys, did you hear about the aliens that we're communing with now at Area 51? I would never go into I don't go there anyway, but I'm never going to go into the way out things we discuss if you're going to send a presentation to family and friends. So that should go out today to anybody that gave their information to No Hobo Code. 2 more quick things before diving back into the image here. One is just a quick note on the GameStop stuff that was discussed. I believe it was the last video. Guys, I was pretty sure, or close to 100% certain, this is a fabrication of the screen for whatever its reasons or purposes are. But now it's 100%. I guess I was 99.5% sure. Now it's 100% with zeros to infinity because of all the nonsense people have emailed me with. As usual, whatever happens that's big has to be, per the way reality itself works, we'll dive into the image in a moment, it has to be riddled with nonsense and conspiracy. And here it comes again. And just the name Elon Musk associated with it opens that door. So it's complete fabrication. The purposes of what they're trying to get at, we'll discuss that in the future. The next thing is, as I was giving the short video about the things that I saw in the Barcelona opening ceremonies, I realized I didn't say it was the Barcelona opening ceremonies 1992. I think I was afraid to say it, like that could help get the video banned or something. But I put it in the description and I put it in the first comment. And I realized I have yet to discuss what exactly that was all about and discuss the big topics associated with that. But I'll do that in the future. It's just I'm not quite ready to do that. I wanted to share those images. I'd also like to do a video on that at some point that we can get and present through Greg's channel. If they would allow Greg to maybe host the video. I'm not going to take any chances here, but I'm with something that creepy. I haven't forgotten about it, and we'll unfortunately address it soon and then put it to bed. Nonsense like that's not worth spending too much time on. All right, let me take another shot now of the reality diagram. If you're driving or something, again, you don't need to see it. And I probably won't even mention the part I'm talking about because it's just too distracting to try to read every little thing I've written. It's better to just sit back like the old-fashioned radio show, put your feet up, smoke them if you got them. Let's explore the big concepts together. Basic premise of all of this, I don't think I stressed this the first time I did this. The most important point needs to be stressed, that consciousness comes first here, guys. Every day that goes by, the brick that you drop on your foot, it's not as real as you think. Consciousness came first. Without that, this whole model doesn't work. There's no big bang, something physical blowed up. Of course not. Consciousness came first. You're never going to hear that from an astronomer at Vanderbilt University. So that's the premise, and I didn't even stress that the first time I touched on this. There are three rings, or if you want to picture three-dimensional, three concentric circles or spheres, with the smallest one in the center being your own reality bubble, of which people can choose a heart-based center of their reality bubble, or I talked about in the last video, a head-based or an ego-based reality center for their own reality bubble. Me personally, I still picture it like a 10-foot or 15-foot radius around me, like the boy in the bubble in Seinfeld, my personal reality bubble. Everything inside this is the most real, if that's even possible, in this environment. The next ring or sphere out, or the next barrier or border to cross, would be what I call the collective consciousness, general acceptance of how things work, and acceptance of the laws of physics, collective beliefs that 95 to 99% of the population believe in the same thing. Some sort of consensus is the second ring. And this is a midway point, an exact midway point between your personal reality bubble and the screen. Ultimately, on the outer edge is the third layer here, the third ring out, the screen itself, the media reality itself, the dark reality that's here. It uses its minions to influence the second ring, the collective conscious, because you are attached. Everybody in a way is attached, reaches out and touches that second ring in some way. And the screen reaches in. It reaches its greasy hand in. You, as just living in the society, you will reach your non-greasy hand out, and where they meet is that second ring. That second ring defines what society is, probably from a quantum perspective, physically even. Again, consciousness comes first before the physical. The wave or the etheric or whatever comes first before the physical. So that second ring really, it really is responsible for everything. The town you walk through, the world in which you live, collective acceptance is what defines how living life in 2021 is going to be, even from a physical perspective, I believe. And the screen surrounds, again, is on the outer edge, and it can't usually penetrate all the way down into your personal reality bubble. It works through its minions, through its processes, through its systems, through its corporations. It has built channels and chutes and ladders down to that second ring. It's built these things up over time immemorial, and it's out using its different systems and minions and governments and everything it has to work with to influence that second ring, which is really, you've seen websites that say powered by this, whoever did the website and hosted it powered by, well, that second ring is powered by your reality bubble energies flowing out to it, making, setting what reality is. If everybody really understood this, and, boy, people are doing just the opposite. They would think I'm crazy or some sort of lunatic for even suggesting these things. But if everybody understood this, the games of the screen and the minions would be over in about 2 seconds. And the whole world could be transformed pretty much overnight. But it's really a hard sell to get even a few people to accept what I'm saying. Most people think it's just the opposite, that their reality comes from the screen in. They're told what is what from the outer edges of the screen. They accept that when it hits that second ring. The ex-Olympic athlete Bruce's yams. The ex-Olympic athlete Bruce's yams. That's a yam product in the grocery store. That's it. Here's what's coming to society. And society's pushing in from the outside. And, you're going to accept this. This type of lifestyle is the greatest thing of all time. You're going to accept this. People reach out and they shake hands with it. They shake hands with it at the second ring. where people don't realize if they push the reality outward from their heart center, or even just decided that they had the power to push it outward from their head center or ego-based, which I guess that's a catch-22, because the whole point of the ego-based reality is the acceptance of what the screen says your life should be. But if they push the reality outward, the screen, those at the periphery, would be in a whole lot of trouble. So 60-second summary on the three rings, the three-ring circus, and then we'll go on to something else. The center, your own reality bubble. Most of us listening here, we're doing everything we can in our lives to make it or evolve it into a heart-based reality, whatever. And that, if anybody's saying, does that really mean the heart, the organ? It does incorporate the heart, the organ, absolutely. But it's general an overall concept. But it should absolutely incorporate the organ itself. It is that powerful. But most people in this world operate on and you see when I drew this, I drew the brain on just at the outer edge. The brain, the head-based reality, this is how most people are operating. The brain I drew is on the outer edge of their reality bubble. It's closer to the screen. It's closer to the second bubble. The most protection you will have, or anyone can have, from the influences of the screen and the corruption of the images that the screen tries to project in towards you, to be as far away from as possible. And to be as far away as possible is to be smack right in the center, which would be more of a heart-based reality. So most people, again, ego-based reality, the collective conscious or the collective society defines who they are. They take their lead on what's good or what's considered success from the second ring, always looking out, always waiting for the reality to be, delivered to them versus pushing it out. What's a success? What should be a reward? What's considered a failure? All of these metrics defined by the screen itself. And most people, therefore, are much, since they're on the outer edges, they reach their hands up and they shake hands. I figure the outer edge of the screen through its minions I've pictured this in terms of the imagery, just thousands or millions of creepy, greasy, demonic hands coming down, offering you different distractions and temptations or things that they tell you should be interested in. It just wants you to reach up and shake hands with all of it. And it's designed itself so there's a hand that just is oh so attractive to reach up and shake. And in the case of the truth community, the things we do, it presents endless conspiracy. In this sense, it is a reality generation machine that presents endless things for us to chase, endless rabbit holes. And we say, oh, well, we don't care about the red carpet hand, and we don't care about following the movie star hand, and we don't care about success in this corporation hand, and all. Oh, what's this hand reaching down from the screen? It says, oh, follow these conspiracies, of which there's hundreds and hundreds presented to us. Aliens and the shape of the earth and what is space and Tartaria and mud flood and what got me distracted for years and years, the Bang events on TV and catastrophe thespians presenting their scripts on TV, and oh, this hand looks so interesting, I'm just going to have to reach up and shake it. Then you shake it, and it can then mold or set the cement in that second ring, because everybody in a way is attached to that second ring. Unless you're one guy in the middle of the middle of Timbuktu, living in a cardboard box. Almost everybody has at least a few connections to that second ring. You're living in the United States in any sort of town or city, you've got hundreds of connections to that second ring, which is collective consciousness, collective acceptance of beliefs, a consensus that probably sets and defines reality itself. Okay, the outer ring, the farthest ring from your heart center, the third one in the image, is the screen. But it's important to just spend 1 minute differentiating between the screen itself and its minions. All right, the screen itself usually seems to have a hard time penetrating down very far. Okay, it really penetrates down as much as it can to that second ring, but it very rarely seems to be able to get to your personal reality bubble. There are a few exceptions here. But it needs to use, again, to get down, to tunnel down. It'll ask Elon Musk to dig one of those tunnels where he can run his 1,000-mile-per-hour little subway, tunnels down to the second ring to influence the collective consciousness and the societal level through its systems, its governments, its actors, its personalities, its minions, its Oprah Winfrey's. There's 1,000 different ways it does this, of course. But it needs the minions to burrow down or to dig down to that second level. And of course, via the internet and everything popping up on our phones. I mean, they're just the minions pop up at that second level now very easily. It's like a transwarp conduit, a Borg transwarp conduit. They get right down to that second level much, much easier with the technology they have in 2021 than they did even 20 or 30 or 40 years ago. That's why the world is becoming, basically insane. It's becoming more fluid. There's reality breakdowns left and right. It's less stable. This is one of the factors, in my opinion. So this is the minions. Could be, most of the minions are not in on anything. Bruce Springsteen is a gigantic minion for the system. But he probably believes in every one of his lost liberal causes, and he believes he's helping out, and he's going to sing another song about the evil corporations without understanding the corporations and who basically pays him and who he's serving. It leads to the exact same place. These minions, Anderson, Cooper Pooper, he, understands that what he just presented on the news, that didn't happen. That didn't happen. He knows that. But he doesn't understand, in my opinion, very much more about how the reality itself works. He could be an exception, all right? Because you get into these families, the old money never went anywhere. Vanderbilt, Anderson, the old money never went anywhere. They just, once you become a trillionaire, you control the banks. You don't even need money. You create this nouveau rich or this real/fake list of new rich, all .com millionaires and tech billionaires, and all tech, and the Forbes list and the Fortune list will show you who the richest people are. None of those people are the richest people. Again, it's like the guy in Mel Brooks movie. Is it History of the World Part 1? You look like the piss boy. That's all they are. There's the people in the Forbes and Fortune list are the piss boy compared to the real rich. Can prove in 5 minutes to somebody. Just sit down on a park bench next to somebody like Forrest Gump. I could prove to anybody in 5 minutes that the real Rockefeller net worth has to be well over $1 trillion, instead of what they'll still talk about, 11 to 20 billion. I mean, give me a break. Give me a break. You can prove in 5 minutes, that it's well over $1 trillion, and this old money, it still exists. It exists in the shadows. So, in terms of but there's still this is kind of, if there's a middle ground between, the screen itself and the minions, it would be, I think, this old money is the middle ground, because it stands in the shadows. Nobody believes there's any Vanderbilt money anymore. Nobody believes there's any, Harriman money anymore. But people still talk about the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds, but still the Rockefellers are paupers. They're just paupers compared to Zuck the Borg, and but people will talk about Rothschild, but all these other names that what happened to J.P. Morgan, Matt, exists as a corporation. Well, what happened to the family? Did they just decide to go become Van Gogh style impressionists? They're just living on a beach in a cardboard box. What happened if J.P. Morgan Chase is a giant corporation? Well, what happened to the family money? Obviously, there would have to be trillions. Just all went away. No heir was interested in getting daddy's money, or if there was in the case an end of the line where one person didn't have children, there are other relatives that would be happy to take the trillion. So all this old money exists, but even that's still more on the minion side. Of course, what is the screen and the reality itself? This is where the police lineup comes in. And I wrote around the periphery. I wrote Satan, Enlil, Enki, the reptilians, aliens, interdimensional beings. All this stuff is on the outer edge. That's the bad guy. And there's nothing that we will ever be able to point to, which leads to the outer edge, the bad guy, is most likely a reflection of ourselves. We need to talk more about this aspect in this presentation, doing this the second time. Since there's no bad guy standing behind the screen animating it. I've talked about it being the reality itself. Talking about it being the reality itself just means it's a mechanism we don't understand. When it pops up in our face, oh, there's a corporation doing this. That's a minion or a system of it to push its goals. And its goals is always the same thing. Need to talk about that. To take a population of real people, how many real people there are left here, and to degrade them, to get them to forget who they really are, to cut spiritual ties. Let's not forget the most important part. Also an important part with the rings, with your personal reality bubble being closest to your heart center, everything inside your own personal reality is the most real. I didn't say this earlier. As you move outwards towards the second ring and then outwards towards the screen, it becomes, quote, more fake, or it might be as pure as possible in this place, closest to your reality heart center bubble. But as you move outwards, it not only becomes fake, it becomes more corrupted. It becomes hijacked. It becomes a lie, a manipulation, a deception as you move outward. You know, Mandela effects happen more often, or reality breakdowns happen more often as you move outward. If you just walk outside into your backyard and you have a little dogwood tree that's just starting to flower in the spring, and you grab a flower and you smell it and you touch the tree, there's very little there. There's very little opportunity for a reality breakdown. It's possible, but very little opportunity for reality breakdown closest to your heart center. So the main thing that the truth community has been struggling with forever, and as long as we struggle with this, it's very happy. The screen or whatever animates it, and even some of the minions are probably very, very happy, is who's the bad guy in the police lineup? You know, Satan, or Enki, Enlil, reptilian, aliens, who's doing it here? Okay? Who's doing it to us? Okay, if a Christian believes Satan, then the next level down, what exactly can we point at? There's nothing to point at. Okay, that has to tell us about the nature of reality itself. There's nothing to point at because we would basically know by now if there was anything to point at. Now, the main thing that needs to come in here to be put on the top of the table is something I really didn't touch on the first time I did this, but you want to put a bad guy in the list or bring out the police lineup. You know, again, there's nobody to point at. We would already know by now. But what has to be put on the top of the table is it's a reflection. The bad guy, what animates the screen on the outer edge, is a reflection of ourselves, or at least the bad part of you, the Wetiko part of you, or the part of you. People say, Matt, you know, you're always looking at these minions and things at the periphery trying to corrupt. You know, there could be an element inside of us, you know, that's actually out to corrupt, or at least is much more wanting to merge with the real deception, the lies, the fakery, the crap on the outer edge of the screen. So we need to keep that in mind. I didn't realize when I made the last presentation that the Pogo cartoon actually changed the meaning of supposedly what was said on Lake Erie, changed it to what most people know or have heard of today. I've seen the enemy and he is us, or I even have thought I've seen the enemy and he is me, the enemy within the ego or the head-based reality. So this presentation, you know, it's 3 concentric rings. That's still the best way to think about it. But that outer screen could be, you know, could be the 2 Utes, could be, you know, is animated by potentially the bad side of all of us, potentially. So it's just something to absolutely keep on the table. But we're not quite there in terms of figuring that out. So I'm going to kind of go away from that. Just keep in mind that, you know, it could be a reflection of our negative selves, and the part that we're here to exercise, the part we're living this life to cut ties with, or to get rid of, or to transmute. and relates to that phrase a little bit from Jacob's Ladder, where it says, hell isn't this place you just burn and what they say it is, or just hell is a place that will burn away all the attachments or what you don't do in life, the attachments you keep here, or you covet this Nobel Prize that you won, and it's all the ways you got screwed up here. Hell is a place or an existence that needs to burn that away, the stuff you should have been doing in life. So the most important part here, and why the three-ring image still holds, is no matter what's causing it, no matter who in the police lineup is causing it, or it's a reflection of ourselves or something we have to exercise out of ourselves, I think it doesn't really matter. Well, if it is a reflection of ourselves, it's good to know that, of course, but what we need to do about it is the same. The armor we have to build is the same. The concept of keeping what the screen wants to present as far away as possible, not reaching up and shaking its hands when it extends all its greasy hands and tentacles down, not reaching up and shaking hands with it. What we have to do for ourselves is the same. Get as close to the heart-based center as possible. Have your reality as much as possible coming from inside of you, pushing out, not accepting what's coming down. There's no doubt that the screen, through its systems and governments and minions, it wants to. There's no question for whatever its reasons are. It sucks loose, or it's fed by this, or it gets sustenance, or its role here in the reality is to play this role of the corruptor. Its goal is to move a human being off its natural path. There's no question about it. It's constantly giving temptations, asking people to merge with their phones, and look what just came up on Facebook. And all it does is try to move a real spirited person away from their spiritual connections to understanding what they're here to do in life, understanding or redefining what's important in life. It just constantly gets up in your face and gets up in your business. The entire screen working through the second ring, which is society itself. And again, I don't think it's that important to be like, well, what really animates it? Is it just loosh? Why does it do what it does? It's not as important to know why it does what it do, as long as you see what it's trying to do to you, whether it's sucking loosh or it's just Hillary types and other types like Minion types and Oprah types and Ellen types. They just punch a clock, and it's their role as a sequential incarnation. It's their role to play the a-hole here. That's what their role is. So at least a certain percentage of us can observe it and become better people by observing it and saying, this is what not to do. And this is, by them being such a-holes, we have succeeded in improving ourselves. So it doesn't, whether they're punching a clock, this is their cosmic role, or they're vampirically sucking off energy. It's still our protections, our armor, staying away from it, not communing with it or reaching up and grabbing a greasy hand. It's still the same. And when you see it like graphically like this, it is simple. I mean, it looks like a million things here, and it looks complicated, but these are just like talking points. It's very, very simple. You back up far enough and look down at it from 50,000 feet. I added a bunch of stuff bottom right. It just, don't even bother, guys. Remember that I did mention, I think the first time I gave this presentation, in Harry Potter, I guess it's the last one, the Deathly Hallows. Voldemort has his army of wizards and witches and whatever they are, of trolls, and he's standing up on the hill, and Hogwarts has put this bubble, this layer of protection, a shield over top of Hogwarts. And all of Voldemort's minions raise up their wands, and they shoot these, in Dungeons and Dragons, you call them magic missiles. Looks like little fireworks sending, but then everybody shoots them off at the same time, and there's thousands and thousands of these little missiles, little light missiles, hitting the outer edge of the bubble or the shield that Hogwarts has put up. So it's like boom, 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 like fireworks, just bombardment. And this is also a screen tactic. For example, I wrote a note here. The fluoride cannon. Again, the goal of the screen is to get itself as close as possible to that second ring, to move down in towards that second ring, the arrows in, to move itself in via its corporations, its systems, its minions. The more real people accept what it offers, accept its menu choices, the more you could think of it as it's inching closer to that second ring, collective consciousness, that ultimately determines what society itself is all about. But you could think of it the other way as well, that it influences and it wants you to kind of inflate your reality outward. But it doesn't really matter because it wants the rings touching. It would ultimately want that second ring to overlap and to touch the third ring. Then it can influence collective consciousness and society and beliefs and consensus. It could influence that directly. And so its bombardment on getting through the shield, it's not Voldemort with his army of wizards and witches with their magic missiles and their wands holding up. It's things which I call the fluoride cannon. Bombardment. How many millions of gallons of fluoride a day, non-stops. There's fast food restaurants and whatever is put in. There's no conspiracy too strange as to what is potentially is in a quarter pounder. You know what they call a quarter pounder in France? They don't call it a quarter pounder. I don't know what the F that is. They like the metric system. They go, Royale with cheese. Royale with cheese. Fast food. Who knows what's in there? The action Jacksonation, the movie with Carl Weathers. That's a magic missile bombardment on Hogwarts to try to get something into your heart center. The electromagnetic bombardment comes through the Voldemort attack and the fluoride cannon. Different way of mind control across the board, whether it be the old-fashioned subliminals to techniques that we can't even fathom. The phone. People voluntarily merge with a digital zeros and ones environment, 5G, Common Core, a way of thinking, constant learned helplessness, education, what comes on the news. You can just think of you are literally standing. It's a bad example, I guess, saying you're standing in Hogwarts, but you're standing under the shield. And it's just the magic missiles. If you've seen the last of Deathly Hallows, the bombardment never stops from the moment you're born, from the moment you die. Fear on the news. The next storm's going to get you. The next problem, what we're going through now, mind control, electromagnetic bombardment, fast foods, action Jacksonation, fluoride, whatever's in the air, whatever's coming out of that plane. It's incredible. Honestly, guys. It's incredible, at least us, where we are as well off as we are. I mean, this is where it gets into, we talk about what's the purpose of this life, this reality, to ascend, to better ourselves, and hey, they're great goals. I mean, I don't care if somebody wants to call all that New Age. There's no problem. I don't. That's why does New Age get such a bad rap all the time? Some of the ideas that come out of things that are labeled are just as good as anybody else, ascend or whatever. These are great, lofty goals, and I don't want to take anything away from that, but I really believe sometimes it's just like our role here is to survive it, or to, remember I said, protect your humanity, increase the armor around your own heart-based reality. There's so much coming at us through the fluoride cannon. I mean, the thousands of these Voldemort missiles coming down daily from birth to death. Is this the place to ascend, or is it like this is the place where if you can hold on, maybe it's just you hold on to everything it is to be, we don't like the word human being. Who is it? Jason said, we're not human beings, we're now human becomings. This is what we're going to use, or at least I will going forward. Not human beings, that's their term, that's a system term. Human becomings, but that's more along the lines of becoming something else or leveling up or ascension. But it's like sometimes you just think, just to hold on to who you are so they can't take any of it, and for whatever you've given away over the course of your life, to get those pieces and put the pieces back together. That's not ascending and leveling up. It's like, okay, I'm just gonna survive this and put the pieces of myself, Humpty Dumpty, put Humpty Dumpty back together. All the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't put that bastard back together, because you don't look to all the king's horses and all the king's men. All the king's horses and all the king's men are corrupt. They're minions. They're screen elements. Humpty Dumpty could do it himself, put himself back together, is likely what that means, which relates to, Dorothy could have left at any time. Just click, thanks, Glenda, or whatever. You should have just told me to click my heels together in the first 5 minutes and get the F out of here. She could have just left at any time. She didn't have to go through all that, didn't have to engage with the screen of Oz the way she did. So my personal philosophy is put the pieces back together and hold on to the real pieces of yourself, is more winning this game versus, transforming into some being of light and, morphing out of here into the etheric. I just don't see that for me. I see it like, if with the bombardment that's happening through the fluoride cannon, shooting a million dark things to try to get you distracted, try to get you in the wrong path, to try to make you this, try to think the wrong thing or covet the wrong thing. If you can survive that and hold on to yourself, hold on to the best parts of you, you've done something in this world. That's my take. It's like being in a foxhole in World War I, and the chlorine gas explosions, and it's just it says death on the other side of no man's land, and it's just it's not quiet on the Western Front. It's just machine gun fire, and it's like, I'm just trying to survive this. Man, is this then somebody jumps in your foxhole, somebody that sells the Abdominizer on TV infomercials between 1 and 2 a.m. Like, here, dude, I want to get ripped abs. Want to do this? Want to get a better peak on your bicep? And you're like in the foxhole in World War I, the mud. You're like, this ain't the time for that, dude. I don't care about your Thigh Master and your Abdominizer and getting ripped. I just want to get out of here, and whole, man. If I get back to England on a nice sunny day, like a year after the war, and everything's back to normal, and the grocery stores actually have fresh fruit again, then I might be interested in your ripped abs. But I ain't interested in that now. This is like, is this more of the foxhole? We're just trying to hold ourselves together, or is this the environment where you get the ripped abs and ascend up? So you understand where I'm coming from. And if I can put all my pieces together, this relates to, by the way, Deathly Hallows. This is that Horcrux. It's that Horcrux theme, but it's like a reverse Horcrux. We'll talk about that. Voldemort put his soul into different objects, and Harry and Ron ran around trying to find the objects and destroy them. And every time they destroyed an object, it was killing a portion of Voldemort. But the idea is Voldemort placed his soul in a bunch of different things and objects. And it's almost like a metaphor for what this reality does, related back to my old soul tokens. If you think there potential truth in movies, and Harry Potter would be something that carries forth a lot of this esoteric truth, occult knowledge, or whatever. Voldemort was placing bits of his soul. Well, what does the reality or the screen or the outer ring want us to do? It kind of wants us to make contracts and over here, and to merge with it over there, or merge with your phone, or it's constantly looking to get pieces of you. And Tony, who's advised me on several things, some very, very smart guy. I mean, we kind of we don't argue ever, but he's kind of like, he's like, you can't give pieces of your higher self wouldn't let you give pieces away, or actual pieces of your spiritual self. And I hear you. Maybe he knows more than me, but I would just say in return, I would say, well, why does the entire reality, using its minions and its systems and its governments and whatever, its presentations, constantly try to get pieces of me then? If I can't give any pieces away, well, why is it? What's it trying to take then? Why is it getting my business all the time then? Maybe it's as simple as somebody said, well, Matt, that's how it feeds. It needs the loosh. You're giving it energy. You pump up pump up a tire, a bike tire with a pump. Just push down the pump. The bike tire inflates and hardens up. You're giving it energy, but you're not. Did you give yourself away to the bike and the bike tire? No. You'll just, just have it. You might be tired. You have a break, have a lemonade, and you'll be good again. Your energy's restored. And maybe it is just about the loosh, but it certainly seems like they're trying to take more than that. And anybody yelling at me like, "Well, Matt, you don't put that in people's heads. You might be, we don't want to manifest that." When we do this, we want to make clear we're not manifesting anything in their favor. We need to discuss this with a cold academic sense. We're not going to get angry at it. We're not going to go fight it. We're not going to give it additional energy. We have to analyze this. Okay, if I say something along those lines, well, again, I don't know how do we talk about it without talking about it. I mean, let's just make our intention very clear. If say anything that sometimes I might say, boy, it's like an evil genius how they did that. I want to make it very clear with my intention. I'm not giving any praise to it, that any kind of energies they can use or anything associated with the outside ring or screen. When in doubt, make sure your intentions are clear, okay? Because that is a factor. If you asked me, that's why that's why everything in this whole reality is some kind of trick, is fake, corrupted as you work outwards, away from your own heart-centered reality bubble. I don't know where this came from, but I wrote it down. Somebody probably emailed me, and I apologize if I don't remember who sent this to me, but I wrote down right on this document, a soul's journey is to recapture the parts of self, and to bring back the divine. Soul's journey is to recapture parts of the self and to bring back the divine. So this does relate to reverse Horcrux, putting the pieces back together, or remembering, the real meaning of remembering from a spiritual perspective, not just recalling, what kid beat you up on the playground, remembering in the mind. Probably many things like this have a alternative meaning. I'm sure Chiron's last would constantly point out that something comes off a certain way, but the meanings of it, or the phonetics of it, or what you're really saying, even if the spelling's a little different, is something the reality uses to influence that second sphere. Of course, English, of course, is a way for the screen to have people themselves reach out and engage, with the parts of that second ring that the screen has access to through its Elon Musk tunnels. There are a million examples of this from people that no longer like to say hello because it's hello. There's merit to that. People that would say that's ingenious, the genie in us. People say about cryptocurrency, crypt to death. Cryptocurrency will be, people use that. That's just a further merging with the digital, what the reality wants people to merge with the digital. Crypt could say all, what the Jordan Maxwell presentation, I heard 10 years ago, it was probably delivered 15 years ago. I had to go pull up my book to find the list. But while we're talking about it, a river bank directs the flow of water. A bank is where you put your money. Water, currency. If you have no money, you're underwater. Your account can be liquidated. You have a spendthrift brother. He's spending money like water. Money will be laundered by a thief. A person needs a loan floated to him. Somebody may be drowning in debt. A bank account may freeze assets. Loan shark. Can people keep their restaurants afloat during this crisis? It just goes on and on. Money in circulation. Again, there's a reason for all of this phonetically to help the screen create the reality that it wants. A basic point probably should have been talked about 40 minutes ago is the screen itself from the outer periphery. It certainly can't influence reality directly. There are a few examples, but I'm not sure how to treat these examples. I'll talk about that again in a moment. It can't penetrate that far down, and usually cannot penetrate into people's personal reality bubble. They need creative powers of real spirited beings to actually create reality itself. So the the idea, or the metaphor, the analogy was the screen floats its images or its concepts, and they're very blurry, or the cement hasn't hardened, it's wet cement, and then it uses its society, its systems, its governments, and its minions to influence real spirited human beings to accept those blurry images, or to accept the wet cement, to make it a permanent part of the second ring, and that kind of brings it to life. There's like one type of event, though, that I can't reconcile, that violates more than anything else the presentation here, or my image presentation of how I believe the reality works. So at some point, we'll keep talking about this, and maybe you guys can help me get to the bottom of this. But I talk about, creating that armor. It can't create. It needs its minions to come and burrow down or tunnel down towards your reality bubble. It can't get to you directly. It needs you to give pieces of yourself away freely. It wants you to make contract with it freely. How do we reconcile events like job applications are posting at the local 7-Eleven for $11 an hour? How do we reconcile 7-Eleven and their job applications posting down the street at $11 an hour? How do we reconcile that event? That's almost like a direct punch into your reality bubble. And there's that, and everybody yelling at me, well, Matt, that's a screen exercise too. Oh, hold on. There are other incidences. How about what's going on right now? Is that affecting your life at all? Yeah, it is. It is. It's like sometimes they punch, or they're able to punch directly into the reality. And again, this is an academic conversation by me suggesting that it seems to be possible. I'm in no way giving energy or intention for them to be able to do this. In fact, I'm saying just the opposite. I'm going to call this out in a moment, that this is a huge, seems to be a huge violation of how this place is set up, and you're going to eat a shit sandwich for a long time for doing this crap. All right, so just the opposite. Okay, now what's going on now? Again, let's just talk about. I keep going back to the same example. The soldier that is being dropped off at Omaha or Utah Beach in Normandy, France. The two bloodbaths were Utah and Omaha Beach. There was a lot of beaches, and they all were machine gunned, but nothing like Utah and Omaha Beach, one of which was pictured in the Tom Hanks movie Saving Private Ryan. And I sat with somebody who was, spent a lot of time in the jungles of Vietnam, saw a lot of people killed. And he said, he says, I wasn't there, of course, at Utah Beach, but he says, Matt, I can tell you that's exactly what it would be like. And this guy, trust me, this guy knew. He had, I can't even, some of the stuff he told me about Vietnam. He says, the way even the sounds of a bullet hitting flesh, he goes, this scene's accurate. And he was like getting almost like the shakes. He goes, I could barely sit through that scene. And again, he wasn't at Utah or Omaha Beach. He was in Vietnam. But the point is, that's an accurate depiction of how bad it was at those beaches. And how do you reconcile what we're talking about now? The young soldier drafted, or, was there a draft in World War II? But he's put out on this beach, and then he's just machine gunned down in the first 5 seconds. Somebody could say, well, isn't that the screen completely, directly, not only penetrating somebody's reality bubble, but just cutting their life down? And then I don't know what to say about that. It certainly seems like that, and it's similar to 7-Eleven. But somebody might say, for I don't know, for the soldiers that were dropped off at Utah and Omaha Beach, were they not drafted? Did they sign up for it? Did they volunteer? I don't know, but there are certainly examples where, they do seem to bring direct death. And that certainly seems to be a punching directly into a reality bubble. When there's, a lot of things like the bang incidences and things like that. A lot of it, when you look closely, appears to be, completely faked. but there's been too many wars and too many things where, where they've brought direct death. And how do it violates the principles here when they punch a tunnel all the way down directly into somebody's reality bubble and taking their life. Well, there's no more better example than that, because I can't reconcile this, guys. You understand the struggles I'm having, where it's constantly reaching and there's nobody, I'm sure nobody here would disagree. It constantly reaches its hands down and wants you to shake hands with it. It's distractions, it's deception, what it wants you to consider to be a success, what it wants you wasting your life on. Zara's about to knock over my water. I just grabbed it. And so it's like, well, yeah, it needs you to reach up and shake hands. It needs you to meet it halfway at the second ring. Well, how do we reconcile where they bring the direct death? And if somebody, there's always, whenever I bring this up, somebody will say, I'll get a comment of some kind like, for the 7-Eleven convenience store issue, that there were just empty shelves and nobody. I don't want to get into that right now. I don't believe that. My cousin's best friend was never to be heard from again. I don't, but it's just that it's kind of. There's a lot of reasons that just makes no sense. Apparently, the what is it? The subway there had thousands and thousands of people in the morning getting off and coming and going. So that would have been, empty for weeks and nobody noticed it. And even if that's true, which is, to me, it's not true at all. There's a lot of deaths. Well, just. How big those buildings were? I was up halfway in them. The damn elevator at the top was broken, believe it or not, when I was there in like 85 or something like that. The elevator at the top, we couldn't go to the very top, but we went halfway and had to go back down. But they're so massive. Just bringing them down would have killed, a lot of people. So there's a lot of incidents where they bring this death directly, but how do they punch it? How do they punch that tunnel directly into people's reality bubbles when the whole reality seems to be designed that it needs people to reach up and grab this greasy hand? Like, just the poltergeist scene, comes to mind in the movie Poltergeist, and the little psychic, or the woman that cleans houses from the demonic presences or whatever. She says, what does she say? Something was strong enough to punch a hole in this world. So it punched how does it punch a hole into your world directly through a few of these events? And, what's the price that they're willing to pay to do that? Because you just get a sense there's a big price. If they're willing to go that far, like, what price needs to be paid if they make a decision to do a major event that punches a tunnel all the way down into basically screwing with people's personal reality bubbles? Yeah, I'm just shaking my head here. I don't know. Those issues do seem to violate the principles here. And of course, I wouldn't be presenting this if I didn't believe the general principles here. There's thousands of examples where it floats its little distraction, or it needs you to engage with it, needs you to bring your energy to it and to want it and covet it and breathe your energy into it. It's constantly asking for your handshake, right? So I guess we're not going to work this one out here, guys, but just keep that in mind, that some of these events do seem to be able, how do they punch that hole down right through the second layer, right into your own personal bubble, and what price they have to pay to do that. So let me do the summary, guys. That's about it for now, but I will end with the John Dunbar Dances with Wolves example, the best example of all time. I think these, no matter what's right or wrong here, of course, a lot of this still could be wrong, but the basic principles, or at least how to create armor for yourself, we use the John Dunbar Dances with Wolves examples. I think this is just absolutely crystal clear. Moving yourself as far away as possible from the hands and the tentacles reaching in from the screen. And there's no better example of that in film and I've done this before, so if you don't want to hear this, I guess the video's over for you or the presentation's over for you. But I just think this is so important to follow the lead of what was presented at Dances with Wolves. Yes, the Dances with Wolves proves it is possible for a movie to come out of Hollywood that is completely pure and with good intentions. I assure you there is no dark side to Dances with Wolves, even to the person saying, well, that's just not possible for Hollywood to produce that. Maybe they had to produce it. Maybe they had to give something back because they took too big of a bite of their shit sandwich over here. Maybe they didn't want to do it. There's reasons. There's still reasons. You don't have to explain it. You just explain why it was done. It was done. And Tom Cruise in The Last Samurai is basically the exact same thing. It's just a remake of the Dances with Wolves concept. John Dunbar, I actually put him on the it's the top left. I put him as a minion, and I put a ... all the way into heart center. He is as close to the screen of this reality. John Dunbar in the opening scenes of Dances with Wolves is as close to the screen as any person possibly can get. I guess let's take it back. Certain Lady Gaga, Eyes Wide Shut parties, things like that might be a little bit kind of pressing your ass against the screen. Maybe, who knows, with the spirit cooking or whatever that crap was, and that was also thrown out as a truth or distraction. Okay, all that spirit crap. Absolutely, we got played and used, but that's for another video. It doesn't mean they don't. So whenever you say that, doesn't mean they don't do this weird crap. It doesn't mean that. It means the way it was put out was to get the attention of the truth community. I do not want to go there. John Dunbar is in the middle of war. I mean, you can't be closer to the screen. He probably, you have to assume he enlisted or signed up to be lieutenant in the army, not drafted, and he just says F it. He's ready to commit suicide. He can't take it. And he, in the middle of a battle, rides out to try to commit suicide, throws his arms out, a Jesus Christ reference, and throws his arms out like he's being crucified. All the bullets miss him, and that leads the Union Army to win that battle. And then, of course, he just wants to get away from society, these systems, war. He doesn't know what the future holds. This is very symbolic. So he chooses a physical location that's as far away from, you could say, the screen or war or the six systems that he was engaging in. He doesn't know what to do. So he says, what's the farthest, most remote outpost? I'll take that post as his reward for helping to win the battle, sacrificing himself. So he's just trying to separate himself physically because he doesn't even know about how to separate himself spiritually from it yet. Very noteworthy that he picked the farthest outpost that exists. And then the guy, what does he say? The foulest human being ever to live takes him out. That guy that farts and burps. And remember with his, whatever he was saying to those horses, I'll try to do it. Remember this, he had this weird way of talking to his team of 4 horses. So he goes, they go out, then he just starts to discover nature, starts to swim in that pond. And of course, as he meets the Sioux Indians, I believe it's Sioux, yeah, Native Americans, he starts to shed the ties. He cuts his own ties with past systems and the screen, and he no longer wants to wear the uniform. He gives up his hat in exchange for a knife. He gets rid of his straw man legal fiction name, John Dunbar, not Dunbar, Dunbar. He adopts Dances with Wolves. It's an incredible progression of moving closest as you can to heart center bubble reality, as far away, physically as well, as far away from the screen as he possibly could, and developing a whole, or understanding a whole spiritual side of him. It's exactly... And even there's a part, I think, where the truth is just given away by Kicking Bird. Kicking Bird says, I'm proud of you. You're walking the path of a real human being. And that's it. That is it. He's not looking for, to mail in his publisher's clearinghouse. So did you guys get mail out here? He's not looking to get accolades from the screen or write. I'd like to write a letter home if you We get Smiles a lot to run the letter to the nearest cavalry outpost to see if I was promoted to the next the next rank up. I want to see if my promotion. He didn't give a shit about any of that crap, except understanding his new life, walking the path of a real human being. So the same exact story plays out in, no doubt about it, with Tom Cruise in Last Samurai. It's the same story, same exact story. He's a drunk. He's ex-military. He's just working he's instructing people on how to kill others, a military instructor. Then he, very similar, finds himself with indigenous peoples, native peoples, the most indigenous or the American Indian equivalent in Japan would be the samurai, and he learns their ways. He first 20 minutes to 30 minutes of the movie, he's wearing his soldier's outfit, but then he abandons that for the indigenous outfit of the samurai. He sheds his past life exactly like Kevin Costner in Dances with Wolves. I believe The Last Samurai is just the same pure movie with an incredible message. Why they put it out or how they did it or why they have to, I don't know. It doesn't matter. It's an incredibly uplifting movie. And then you see, then he gets back into Tokyo, whatever. It's not Katsumoto, Yamura, or whatever the guy who's negative influencing the emperor. The chubby little guy who's having a very bad influence on Japan, and of course adopting all the Western ways. And he gets back, and you see the power lines, and they're all wearing Western clothing. The first thing he says to Tom Cruise, "Oh, come in, Captain Ogden. Captain Ogden, can I offer you whiskey?" And he's like, "No, I'm past that." And he knows, at least this Yamura guy knows, that when he says, "Can I offer you whiskey?" and he says no to it, he knows that it's symbolic that he's made changes to his life. And it's not just that he's no longer an alcoholic or whatever. The symbolism is he has gotten too close to the samurai, and Yamura doesn't trust him at all after the fact that he doesn't take the whiskey. Now, why would you not trust somebody just because they maybe kick their alcoholism? But it's more symbolic than anything else. Then after that, it's kind of like the They Live movie that, oh, you want to adopt Western ways, and in this Captain Ogden adopted, he's no longer has the Western way. So now he's an enemy. Then the Yamura immediately moves to try to kill him. So, it's just like They Live, an Invasion of the Body Snatchers, screeching and pointing. Yamura didn't screech and point at Captain Ogden. That's it. The kid tried to pronounce it. Katsumura's son tried to pronounce his name when they were sitting around the table for the first time. He even says there's other truth drops in that movie when he's trying to practice or become, I guess, his martial arts or his Aikido, or he's practicing fighting against one of their masters. He's getting his ass handed to him pretty quickly, even though Tom Cruise has real battle experience, a pretty tough guy. The guy's, he knows his karate and Aikido, whatever. He's getting his ass handed to him. And the young Katsumoto's son comes out and he says, you mind the people watching, you mind this, you mind that. He can't speak English very well. He says, too many minds. You got to, you can't think of 1,000 things. You have to be more focused. There could be a potential truth drop. The two Utes, too many minds. The Wetiko, maybe, but we'll get into that some other time. Mind the people watching. Too many minds. Either way, it's good advice. So, I don't know, guys. Dancing with Wolves and The Last Samurai. The Tom Cruise movie being good. Yeah, it is. It's pure and it's good. And why they had to make it, I don't know. But if you haven't seen it, it is a wonderful movie. Right along the same lines as Dances with Wolves. And thanks for listening, guys. I'm sure we'll tackle this. Well, pretty much we'll tackle this concept for the rest of our lives. I was going to say one more time. No, No, it will be refined for a very, very long time because it helps us on our own John Dunbar path. It helps us with our own armor. Thanks for listening.